The woman they called a coward. The room went silent before anyone realized why. The engagement party was supposed to be a celebration, crystal glasses, expensive suits, soft music, smiling faces. Everyone had gathered to celebrate my sister's future. Nobody came to celebrate me. I stood near the far corner of the room, holding a glass of water, trying to disappear among the guests. For most people, this night was about happiness. For me, it was another battlefield. Then my father raised his glass. "Everyone here knows my daughter Victoria has always been strong," he said proudly. "She knows exactly what she wants from life. She never runs away when things get difficult." A few guests smiled. My sister, Victoria Hale, lowered her head with a perfect fake smile. She knew exactly what my father was doing. He wasn't just praising her, he was reminding everyone who he wanted them to respect and who he wanted them to hate. Then my father's eyes moved across the room. They stopped on me. "Some people are simply not built for responsibility." The words were quiet, but they hit harder than shouting, because I had heard them before, too many times. My name is Claire Morgan. For 10 years, my family told everyone that I was a disappointment. They told people I couldn't handle pressure. They told people I abandoned my team when things became dangerous. They turned my years of service into a story of shame. And the worst part? I never corrected them. Not because they were telling the truth. Because I had reasons they would never. Understand, a soldier learns something early. Sometimes the hardest battles are not fought on the battlefield. Sometimes they are fought in your own home. Around me, whispers moved through the crowd. "Isn't that the daughter who left the military?" I heard she couldn't handle combat. Such a waste. I heard every word, but I didn't react. Real pain teaches you patience. You stop fighting every person who throws a stone at you. You save your strength for the battles that actually matter. My father smiled, believing he had won. Then he turned toward the man standing beside my sister. "Commander Ethan Carter, I'd like you to meet my daughter Claire." Everyone in the room respected Ethan Carter, a Navy SEAL commander, a man known for discipline, courage, and impossible missions. He stepped forward calmly and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you." I reached out and shook his hand. And that was the moment everything changed. His expression disappeared. The confident smile on his face vanished. His eyes moved downward to my wrist. Small part of my sleeve had shifted, just enough to reveal the scar I always kept. Hidden, his fingers froze. His breathing changed. For a moment, the entire room disappeared. Ethan wasn't looking at a scar. He was looking at a memory from a mission almost. Nobody knew about a mission that changed the lives of everyone involved. His eyes slowly moved back to mine. "Where did you get that injury?" His voice was different now. Not curious, not suspicious, respectful. Before I could answer, my father laughed. "Oh, that? Don't worry about her." He waved his hand casually. "Claire has always had trouble adapting. Some people just aren't made for pressure." But Ethan didn't laugh. He kept staring at me because he knew something my family didn't. Person doesn't get a scar like that from giving up. A scar like that comes from sacrifice, from choosing someone else's life over your own. For 10 years, my family had controlled the story. They decided what people believed about me. They made me the villain. They made themselves the victims. But standing there in that room, I realized something. The truth doesn't stay buried forever. Sometimes, all it takes is one person who knows what they are looking at. And Ethan Carter knew. He wasn't looking at a coward. He was looking at someone who survived. And he was about to uncover the truth my family had spent years hiding. 48 hours earlier, before the engagement party, before Ethan Carter discovered the truth, before my family's carefully built lies started falling apart, I was driving along the empty coastal highway toward the only place I never wanted to return. Home. The word sounded strange, because a house can be where you were born, but that does not always mean it is where you belong. The gray clouds covered the sky as my old SUV moved through the foggy roads near the coastline. My hands rested firmly on the steering wheel. 6 years of deployments had taught me how to stay calm in difficult situations, but nothing prepared me for the feeling of returning to the place where my own family had erased my existence. The old house appeared through the fog, a large white building sitting on the edge of the coast. Beautiful from the outside, cold from the inside. I parked the vehicle near the driveway and turned off the engine. For a few seconds, I just sat there. The silence was heavy. Then I grabbed my worn tactical bag from the passenger seat. Everything I owned was inside that bag. Years of memories, years of sacrifice, years of surviving. I walked toward the front door. Before I could knock, it opened. My father, Daniel Morgan, stood there, the man who was supposed to welcome me home. He didn't smile. He didn't hug me. His eyes moved over my clothes, my boots, and my old jacket. Like he was inspecting something that didn't belong. "You came back." That was all he said. "No. I'm glad you're safe." "No, I missed you." Nothing. I looked at him silently. He stepped aside. "Use the side entrance." I almost thought I heard him wrong. "The front carpet was recently replaced," he explained. "Your boots are dirty." For a moment, I remembered every mission where I walked through mud, smoke, and broken buildings to save people. But here, in my own father's house, my boots were the problem. I didn't argue. I simply picked up my bag and walked around the house, the same way a soldier moves through hostile territory, quietly, carefully, without wasting energy. When I entered through the side door, I saw my sister Victoria standing in the kitchen. She looked perfect, designer clothes, expensive jewelry, a smile that looked practiced. She walked toward me and hugged me. But it wasn't a real hug. Her body stayed away. Her expensive clothes never touched my jacket. The moment she stepped back, her smile disappeared. "Listen carefully," she whispered. "Ethan's family is coming tonight." I said nothing. She continued. "Do not talk about the military." Her voice became colder. "We are trying to create a good impression." I looked at her. "The military is not something you should bring up." She adjusted her bracelet. "Just stay quiet. Sit somewhere in the background. Don't make things uncomfortable. Don't make things uncomfortable." Funny, because for years they had been the ones making me uncomfortable. They had taken my sacrifices, my money, my reputation. And then they asked me to disappear. I walked upstairs to my old room, or what used to be my room. I opened the door and stopped. The room was gone. The place where I had studied. The place where I had kept my childhood memories. Everything had been removed. The walls were changed. My old bedroom had become a massive clothing room for Victoria. Designer dresses filled the space where my desk once stood. Luxury shoes covered the floor where my books used to be. My past had been replaced by someone else's image. I placed my bag down in the corner. As I moved it, an old box fell from the shelf. A stack of papers spilled onto the floor. I picked one up, then I froze. It was a bank statement, a joint account. My name. My father's name. I remembered that account. Every paycheck I earned before joining the military, every extra shift, every exhausted night working just to save money for my future. I had trusted my father. I thought he was protecting my dreams. But my eyes moved down the page. The balance was zero. The money was gone. All of it. Years of work, years of sacrifice, gone. Then I saw the date. The exact time period when Victoria had begged our father for money to save her failing business idea. My father didn't support my future. He destroyed it. and he used my sacrifices to build hers. I sat there quietly. Most people would have screamed. They would have run downstairs and demanded answers, but I wasn't most people anymore. Years in the military taught me something important. Emotions are powerful, but control is more powerful. I folded the statement carefully. I placed it inside my jacket pocket. Not because I was afraid, because evidence is more useful when you keep it until the right moment. I looked around the room one more time. A room that was once mine. A house that was supposed to be my home. Then I heard the doorbell downstairs. Ethan Carter and his family had arrived. The night was beginning, and nobody in that house knew. The truth was already inside the walls. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house. My father immediately changed. The cold expression disappeared. The businessman appeared. A perfect smile, a perfect posture, a perfect performance. That was something Daniel Morgan had mastered over the years. He knew how to look like a loving father when people were watching. He knew how to hide everything when they were not. I stood quietly near the kitchen entrance as Ethan Carter and his family walked inside. Ethan was different from the people my family usually invited. Most people who entered this house were impressed by expensive furniture, luxury cars, and family status. Ethan didn't look at any of those things. He noticed people, their behavior, their movements, their eyes. A person like that was dangerous for my family, because lies only survive when nobody pays attention. "Commander Carter, welcome," my father said warmly. The same man who had just ordered me to use the back door was now shaking Ethan's hand like they were old friends. Victoria walked forward with confidence. She knew exactly how to play her role, the perfect daughter, the successful woman, the one everyone should admire. She introduced herself, smiling. "Ethan, I'm so happy you could be here." He smiled politely, but his eyes moved around the room. Then they stopped on me. Only for a second, but I noticed. People who have spent years in dangerous places learn to recognize small details. A quick look, a change in breathing, a hesitation. Ethan noticed that I wasn't part of the celebration. I was placed away from everyone. Like I didn't belong. Dinner began. The table was full. Expensive food, expensive wine, expensive conversations. Everything looked perfect, except the truth. My father spent the entire evening talking about Victoria. "She has always been determined," he said proudly. "She knows how to handle pressure." Victoria smiled. "She has always been the strong one." The words sounded harmless, but I knew what they meant. Every compliment about Victoria was another attack against me. Then my uncle Richard leaned forward. "So Claire, what are you doing these days?" The room became slightly quieter. It was not a question, it was a trap. Before I could answer, Victoria smiled. "Oh, Claire has had a difficult time." She placed her hand gently on Ethan's arm, a small performance. A victim asking for sympathy. After leaving the military, she struggled. I looked at her. Leaving. That word, a simple word. But my family had turned it into a weapon. My father looked down at his plate. He didn't correct her. He knew the truth. But silence was easier. Richard shook his head. I heard something different. He looked at me. "People said you abandoned your unit." The table went quiet. A normal person would have reacted. They would have defended themselves. They would have demanded respect. But I stayed silent. Because I knew something they didn't. The truth does not need to scream. It survives. Victoria looked at Ethan. "I'm sorry you have to hear this." Her voice became softer. Family problems are embarrassing. She wanted him to feel sorry for her. She wanted him to see me as the problem. But Ethan didn't look convinced. He looked at me. Not with judgment, with curiosity. He studied my reaction, my posture, my silence, my control. A person who truly abandoned their team does not sit like that. A person who ran away does not carry themselves like someone who has faced death. Ethan noticed. My father did not, because my father never wanted to know who I really was. He only wanted the version of me that made Victoria look better. After dinner, everyone moved into the living room. The guests laughed, the music played, the perfect family image continued. But behind that image was a decade of lies, a decade of stolen opportunities, a decade of people believing a story that was never true. And the biggest mistake my family made was telling that lie in front of someone who knew the difference between a coward and a hero. Ethan Carter had spent his life surrounded by warriors. He knew what courage looked like, and for the first time in 10 years, someone was starting to question my family's story. The next morning, the house was quieter than usual. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes before something breaks. I woke up before sunrise. Old habits never disappear. Years of military training had changed the way I lived. I didn't need an alarm. I didn't need someone telling me when to move. My body already knew. I packed my things slowly. There wasn't much to pack. My life had become simple. A few clothes, a few memories, a few things I refused to leave behind. As I reached for my jacket, I noticed Ethan Carter standing outside near the back porch. He wasn't there by accident. He was watching, not spying, observing. There was a difference. I stepped outside. The cold morning air hit my face. Ethan. He turned around. Claire. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Two people who understood silence better than most people understood conversation. Finally, he asked, "How long were you in the service?" I looked toward the ocean. Long enough. His eyes narrowed slightly. That answer would have annoyed most people, but not Ethan. He understood. People with real experience don't always explain everything. Sometimes they just remember. "I saw your scar yesterday." My expression didn't change. "I have many scars. That one is different." His voice was calm. "But you already know that." I didn't answer, because he was right. That scar was not an injury. It was a reminder of a night when everything went wrong, a reminder of the people who almost didn't make it home. Before Ethan could ask more questions, we heard voices from inside the house. My father and Victoria. They were arguing. Quietly, but not quietly enough. "I told you she shouldn't have come back," Victoria said. "Keep your voice down," my father replied. "She ruins everything." I stood still. Ethan heard it too. Victoria continued. "Do you know what happens if Ethan finds out the truth?" My father's voice became nervous. "He won't." "You said that before." A pause. Then Victoria spoke again. "People only respect her because they don't know what happened." My hands tightened, not from anger, from control. Ethan looked at me. Now he understood. The story was not just about family drama. It was about something hidden, something protected. Later that day, while everyone prepared for the engagement party, I went upstairs to collect the rest of my belongings. The old room was still filled with Victoria's things. But near the corner of the closet, I noticed something strange. A small locked box. It wasn't mine. I had never seen it before. I picked it up. It was heavier than expected. Inside were old documents, photos, military records, letters. My heart stopped for a moment. Someone had kept pieces of my past hidden. I opened the first document. It was a report. A mission report. The name at the top caught my attention. Operation Nightfall. I read the first few lines. A rescue mission. A failed extraction. A team trapped behind enemy lines. Then I saw another line, the part that made my chest tighten. Officer Claire Morgan refused evacuation and remained behind to assist injured personnel. I closed my eyes. After all these years, the truth was still there, buried under lies. I continued reading. 6 team members successfully recovered. One officer suffered critical injuries during rescue operations. My fingers touched the scar on my wrist, the scar my family called proof of weakness, the scar that was actually proof I stayed, proof I fought, proof I saved lives. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. Ethan was standing at the doorway. He had seen enough. His expression had changed. No confusion, no doubt, only realization. "Claire." His voice was quiet. "Why did they tell everyone you abandoned your team?" I looked at the documents in my hand, then at him. Because some truths are painful to explain. Especially when the people who hurt you are the people who should have protected you. My family needed a villain. I closed the folder, and I was the easiest person to blame. Ethan said nothing, because now he understood. This was never about a failed soldier. It was about a family that had spent years hiding a hero, and the truth was finally starting to come out. The room felt different after Ethan discovered the documents. Not because anything had changed, because someone finally knew. For years, I carried the weight of a story that was never mine. A story created by people who needed me to look weak so they could look strong. Ethan slowly walked toward the table. His eyes stayed on the mission report. He read every line carefully, not like a curious person, like a soldier, someone who understood what those words meant. "Operation Nightfall," he whispered. I looked away. "Some things are better left buried." Ethan closed the folder. No, his voice was calm. But some things were buried because someone wanted the truth hidden. That sentence stayed with me, because he was right. The mission was never a secret because I was ashamed. It was kept quiet because of the people involved, the people who survived, the people who deserved to return home. Years earlier, everything changed during a deployment overseas. Our unit received an emergency call. A rescue team had been trapped after an operation went wrong. The situation was unstable. The area was dangerous. The order was simple: fall back. But 6 soldiers were still inside. 6 people who were waiting for someone to come back for them. Everyone followed the order, except me. Not because I wanted to be a hero. Because I couldn't leave them behind. I remembered the smoke, the heat, the sound of collapsing concrete, the weight of every second. I remembered pulling injured soldiers through the destroyed structure while everything around us was falling apart. I remembered my hands bleeding. I remembered my body telling me to stop. But I didn't, because they were counting on me, and I had made a promise. Nobody gets left behind. When the rescue was finally complete, I was the last person pulled out. I survived. But the story that came afterward was complicated. The military wanted to recognize what happened. They wanted to make it public, but I refused. There were reasons. People who helped us. People whose names could not be exposed. So the world never knew. And my family filled that silence with their own version. A version where I was the failure. A version where I was the person who ran away. Ethan looked at me. "You let them believe that?" I nodded. "Some truths are expensive." He looked frustrated. "Your own family destroyed your reputation." I didn't answer. Because that was the hardest part. Not the mission, not the injury, not the years away. It was knowing that the people who knew me the longest chose not to believe me. That evening, the engagement party began. The house filled with people. The same people who had judged me. The same people who believed every lie. But something was different now. Ethan knew, and he was watching. He watched the way my father spoke about me. He watched the way Victoria avoided certain questions. He watched the way everyone treated me like I was someone they could ignore. The final piece of the puzzle was becoming clear. My family didn't just misunderstand me. They needed people to misunderstand me, because my truth would destroy the image they had built. Then my father raised his glass. To family. Everyone smiled. Everyone except Ethan. He looked across the room at me. And I knew. The moment they had spent 10 years avoiding was finally coming. The truth was no longer hidden. And tonight, everyone was going to hear it. The engagement party continued as if nothing was wrong. That was the strange thing about people who live behind lies. They can stand in the middle of a disaster and still pretend everything is perfect. The music played, the guests laughed, the glasses were filled again. My father, Daniel Morgan, moved through the room like a man who owned everything. Around him, he shook hands, he smiled, he told stories, and every story had the same message. He was successful. Victoria was perfect, and I was the mistake they survived. Stood near the balcony, watching everything quietly. The old version of me would have wanted to explain. I would have wanted to prove myself, but that person no longer existed. I had spent years proving myself in places where actions mattered more than words. The battlefield does not care about rumors. It only cares about what you do when everything goes wrong. Then one of my father's business friends walked toward me. His name was Robert Hayes, a wealthy man who had always believed money gave people permission to judge others. He stopped in front of me. "You know," he said loudly, making sure others could hear, "some people should be grateful they are even invited." The conversations around us slowly disappeared. People turned to watch. Robert smiled. Coming back after failing is one thing, but pretending nothing happened? He shook his head. That takes confidence. I looked at him. No anger, no fear, just silence. He expected a reaction. He wanted me to lose control, but he didn't understand something. People who survive war don't break easily because someone raises their voice. Robert stepped closer. "I heard you abandoned your team." A few guests looked uncomfortable, but nobody stopped. Him? Nobody defended me. Not even my father. He stood across the room, watching, allowing it. That hurt more than Robert's words. Then Robert lifted his hand, not a punch, not an attack, just an attempt to push me aside. Like I was nothing. My body reacted automatically. Years of training. My balance shifted, my muscles tightened. I knew exactly how to stop him. But before I moved, a loud sound cut through the room. A glass hit the table. Hard. Everyone froze. Ethan Carter stood. There, the polite expression was gone. The man standing in front of us was no longer just a guest. He was a commander, a protector. He stepped between us. "Move away from her." His voice was calm. But everyone felt the warning. Robert suddenly looked smaller. "Ethan, this is just a misunderstanding." "No." Ethan looked directly at him. "This is exactly what it looks like." The room became silent. My father rushed forward. "Commander, please. This is just family business." Ethan turned toward him. "Family?" He repeated the word, almost like he couldn't believe it. My father forced a smile. "Claire has always had problems. We tried to help her." Ethan's eyes became colder. "Help her?" The room changed. Everyone noticed. "You allowed people to insult her." My father looked uncomfortable. "You don't understand?" "No." Ethan stepped closer. "I understand perfectly." Then he looked around the room. Everyone here heard. Accusations. He paused. But nobody asked for evidence. Nobody spoke. Because he was right. They had believed the easiest story, not the true one. Victoria suddenly stepped forward. "Ethan, don't listen to her." Her voice was nervous now. She has always wanted attention. For the first time, Ethan looked at Victoria differently, not like his future wife, like someone he was evaluating. "Interesting," he said quietly, "because the only people asking for attention tonight are the ones afraid of the truth." Victoria's face changed. She knew something was happening, something she couldn't control. My father tried to take control again. "Claire is not the person you think she is." Ethan looked at him. You're right. Everyone waited. Ethan continued. She is not the person you described. Silence, a heavy silence. Then, Ethan turned toward me. His eyes showed something I hadn't seen in years. Respect. Not sympathy, respect. And that was the moment I knew. The story my family created was ending because the one person in the room who understood courage finally knew mine. The room had never been this quiet. Not because nobody had anything to say, because for the first time, nobody knew what lie to tell. My father looked around the room. The confidence was gone. The control was gone. For years, he had controlled the story. He decided what people believed. He decided who was respected. He decided who was blamed. But now, standing in front of everyone, he had lost control. Ethan Carter reached inside his jacket and removed the folder containing the mission documents. He placed it on the table. This is the truth you should have known before judging. Her. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Ethan opened the folder. This woman did not abandon her team. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. She stayed behind when others were ordered to leave. A few guests looked at each other. Confusion replaced their judgment. Ethan continued. During Operation Nightfall, a rescue mission failed after a structure collapsed. Several operators were trapped. He looked directly at my father. Most people would have followed the evacuation order. A pause. She didn't. The room became even quieter. She went back. My sister Victoria shook her head. No. It was barely a whisper. But everyone heard. Ethan ignored her. She entered a collapsing structure. She carried injured soldiers out. She kept moving even after she was seriously wounded. His eyes moved toward my wrist, toward the scar my family had spent years hiding. That scar everyone here looked at as a weakness. He paused. It is proof that she refused to leave people behind. Nobody looked at me the same way anymore. The same people who had whispered about me were now silent. The same people who judged me were now uncomfortable. But I didn't need their approval. Not anymore. Then Ethan turned toward the older man standing near the back of the room. Master, Sergeant James Walker, an older military veteran, stepped forward. He had been quiet all evening, but everyone noticed him now. He walked slowly into the center of the room. His uniform was replaced by a formal suit, but his presence was still powerful. He looked at me. Then he looked at the crowd. I was there. His voice was deep. I saw what happened. My father swallowed. Master Sergeant Walker continued. Claire Morgan was the reason 6 people came home alive. The room froze. She wasn't running away from danger. He looked around. She was running toward it. Victoria's face lost all color. For years, she had built her image by destroying mine. Now the truth was standing in front of everyone. My father stepped forward. This is a misunderstanding. Nobody believed him anymore. Ethan looked at him. No. His voice became colder. A misunderstanding happens when people don't know the truth. He pointed toward the documents. This was a choice. A choice. That word hurt more than any insult, because it was true. They didn't accidentally destroy my reputation. They chose to. Victoria suddenly walked toward Ethan. Ethan, please. Her voice changed. The confidence disappeared. You know me. He looked at her. I thought I did. Those words broke her expression because she realized something. The man she wanted to impress was no longer impressed. He was disappointed. Ethan removed the engagement ring from his pocket. The room held its breath. This marriage is over. Victoria stared at him. You can't do this, Ethan looked at her calmly. I can. He placed the ring on the table. Because I will not build a future with people who destroy the truth to protect their image. My father looked defeated. Not because he finally understood what he had done, because He finally understood that nobody believed him anymore. Ethan walked toward me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he stood straight. Not as a guest, not as my sister's fiancé, as a soldier. And he gave me a salute. A real military salute, the kind of respect I had not received. From my own family. The room watched in complete silence. The people who called me a failure were now watching a commander honor me. And that was the moment. Everyone finally understood. I was never the person who needed to prove herself. They were the ones who needed to apologize. But some wounds don't need apologies. Some wounds heal the moment you finally walk away from the people who caused them. The engagement party was over, but the truth had only just begun. The guests who arrived, expecting a celebration, left carrying a completely different memory. They came to watch a family honor success. Instead, they witnessed the destruction of a lie. The house that once felt like a place where I didn't belong suddenly felt empty, not because people had left, because the power of the people who controlled it was gone. My father stood near the window. The same man who once spoke about reputation and respect now couldn't even look at me. For years, he believed he could rewrite my story. He believed money, status, and influence were stronger than the truth. He was wrong. The truth does not need permission to exist. It only needs time. I walked upstairs and collected my bag. There wasn't much. There never was. My life was never built around expensive things. It was built around experiences. People I protected. People who protected me. Moments. That changed who I became. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, my father finally spoke. "Claire." I stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe he would finally say the words I had waited years to hear. Maybe he would admit what he did. Maybe he would apologize, but some people only feel regret after they lose control, not after they cause pain. I didn't know his voice was weak. I looked at him. "No," I said quietly. "You didn't want to." "No." The room became silent, because that was the truth. He had every opportunity, every chance to ask, every chance to believe his own daughter, but believing the lie was easier. Victoria stood nearby. The confidence she carried for years was gone. She looked smaller, different. But I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel anger. I just felt tired. Some battles end when you win. Others end when you stop caring about the outcome. I walked toward the front door. The same door I was told not to use when I arrived. The same door I was considered unworthy to walk through. This time, I opened it myself. The cold morning air touched my face, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Outside, Ethan Carter was waiting near his vehicle. He wasn't there to save me. He knew I didn't need saving. He was there to show respect. "You leaving?" I nodded. "Yes." He looked at the house behind me. Some places are harder to leave than others. I looked back at the building, a place that held memories. Some good, many painful. You know what I learned? Ethan waited. Sometimes, the people who share your blood are not your family. I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. And sometimes strangers become the people who remind you who you really are. Ethan gave a small nod. A soldier's understanding. No unnecessary words. You know what they call people like you? I looked at him. He smiled slightly. People who don't leave others behind. For years, I carried the name my family gave me, the failure, the disappointment, the person who supposedly ran away. But that was never my name. It was their lie. I got into my vehicle. The engine started. Looked at the house one last time, not with hatred, not with regret, just acceptance. Because forgiveness does not always mean letting someone back into your life. Sometimes forgiveness means letting yourself move forward. The road stretched. Ahead unknown, open mine. As I drove away, I realized something important. The hardest battle was never the mission. It was surviving. The people who tried to convince me I wasn't enough, but they failed. Because they never understood one thing. A person who survives impossible situations does not need the approval of people who never believed in them. I kept driving, leaving behind the lies, leaving behind the judgment, leaving behind the version of myself they created, and for the first time, I wasn't running away. I was finally moving forward. The end.